call to order the property subcommittee, April 15th, 5:30. On the agenda is 154 Everett Street and the request to remove the affordable housing restriction. And I looked into it, and it appears that this has been an ongoing thing. You maybe even part of the original putting the restriction in place a number of years ago. I'm not sure if
I was there too.
so you're
I actually thought things were moving along.
familiar with that then. I did look into it a little bit, and it appears that they put an RFP together in 2011, and they did not get any bids. The minimum bid requirement was $83,000 at the time, and nobody felt that it was feasible to develop the property. The second time they put it out to bid was June 2012. There was only one bid received from Habitat for Humanity. The minimum bid price was $1. Habitat signed a memorandum of understanding with the city in 2012 that they had obtained comprehensive permits within 12 months. They did not. And then in November 2014, Habitat provided a new project schedule that had permits received in 2018, and the first house to be built in 2020, and the second house in 2022. But again, that is just their timetable. There's also a letter to the mayor. I'll pass it around. But again, it's their time frame, basically acknowledging that they wouldn't be able to do anything with the property until potentially 2022. So I mean, you originally put actually there's one other piece of information too. There was funds used from CPA in 2004.
In the amount of?
$22,000 in CPA to match state and federal funds for brownfield cleanup to be used in 4 units of affordable housing. And then in 2011, $10,715 in CPA for completion of site cleanup of affordable housing. And it's possible that these funds might need to be repaid, which could be set for the minimum bid price for the property. If we need to pay back $30,000 or so, it's like, okay, well, minimum bid price then would be $30,000 if we, remove the affordable housing restriction.
The affordable housing restriction was put on because we wanted to be able to use the city-owned property for affordable housing.
Right. But now we put in the Parsons Street project there with many units of affordable housing, so I'm not overly concerned with removing it myself under the circumstances. I don't think that you'd get much pushback from the neighborhood either. Especially considering that it would be okay, just where's that coming from? Especially considering that the timeline could be years before anything.
2022.
Yeah, another 7 years before the property's even touched, and it's just kind of a blighted piece.
Blighted isn't the word for it.
Okay.
It's beyond blighted.
Yeah.
If you haven't been, I walked it today, and it was just appalling the way this is being cared for.
Yeah, or not cared for.
Because it was a mess outside, it was a mess inside.
What was? Can you remind me of the minimum bids again?
80,000, I think you said.
83,000 was the first minimum
one?
bid back in 2011, and like I said, let's say a handful of for-profit and non-profit developers did express interest in the parcel. They did not believe the project was feasible as described in the RFP because of the cost of the land was prohibitive and the affordable housing requirements were too restrictive and/or the current real estate market just too unpredictable. So at 83,000, nobody was going to touch it again, especially considering the restrictions.
And did they put it back out at cheaper?
No, the second time
Habitat?
the bid was a minimum was $1.
$1.
So
And that's when Habitat jumped in and didn't.
But they haven't done anything with it.
right, and again, their proposed timeline is now potentially 2022.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the only snag here is the CPA funds. Those are gonna, those will definitely have to get re
I would expect.
yeah.
But again, if we remove the restriction and make the minimum bid price, I'm gonna just say 30,000 or whatever needs to be repaid, you know, for the piece of property, you know, a for-profit developer might look at that and say, yeah, we can.
Now, are they asking? They're not asking us to give a recommended sale price and restrictions, right? Because if we live the affordable housing restriction, that's gonna be worth much. It's gonna be worth a lot more.
Right.
So, you know.
And again, we're just talking a minimum, and we're just tasked with whether or not we lift the affordable housing restriction, but then the city's gonna have to pay back the money. Like, so they'll put it in the RFP for a minimum bid price. But, you know, again, the hope would be that we'd get a higher price than just a minimum bid.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be closer probably to the first.
And then, of course, get the property back on the tax rolls. So,
Right.
so I'm for it. I'm just letting you know where I stand.
The housing partnership wrote the letter.
Yeah.
Did they have a recommendation in the letter?
I didn't see a recommendation.
Hampton Housing Partnership concluded it's not in the best interest of the city to wait such a long time.
Oh,
So the housing partnership said that it's not in the city's best interest to wait such a long time to redevelop the Everett Street site. We'd support a decision to release the PV habitat from their contract with the city and put the site out to bid with another developer.
So
At
they.
the same time, it's still to encourage affordable housing on the site if possible,
Mhm.
is their recommendation.
So they want to keep it restricted, but they want to release the Habitat for Humanity.
I don't think that Habitat Humanity actually has a stake in it, because before it said that Habitat signed a memorandum of understanding with the city in 2012 that they would obtain comprehensive permits within 12 months, and they did not accomplish that.
Right.
So that's, you know, they broke the memo of understanding, and then in 2014, that's when they provided a new project schedule that had permits received in 2018.
Do we have a copy of that memorandum of understanding? I haven't seen it.
No, I don't have a copy of it.
Probably would be good to know where we stand legally on that. I imagine that you're right, that the memorandum of understanding, if the conditions weren't met, but
Right.
you know, nobody submitted to us documentation of that fact. I think we need to see that before
And one thing
moving forward.
One thing we might want to is get in touch with somebody from Habitat and be like, so if we release, do you want to be released from this?
Well, I don't think that, well, again, we can look into it to determine whether or not they have any grounds to hold
To
the property,
hold it.
which I doubt that they do, otherwise we wouldn't be tasked with the question of removing the restriction.
I'm just wondering if when they bid for $1, when they paid that $1, if that, you know, if they,
Yeah, but
if there was any sort of transfer of,
with an
If they had
agreement like that,
expectations of some sort.
you can't just bid for $1 and say, okay, well, now we're going to just hold the property and leave it there. It's
Right.
like, no, the expectation is you bid for $1 and you're
And you
going to
do
develop it. So if they didn't develop it, they didn't get the permits for the development, then I'm saying we'll give them their $1 back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't just leave it
Yeah.
off the rolls.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure who brought forward the request for, I was absent at that meeting.
This request?
Right, I assume it's
I think it's the mayor.
I thought it was the
Right.
mayor's office.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can just confirm with her that there's no title to the property through Habitat for
Right.
Humanity.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that she didn't give us the memorandum.
Right. Well, I didn't get-
Because it certainly would be good to know that.
Right, I mean, we didn't,
Well, and so we know what the housing partnership thinks. I mean, we're not talking about a huge amount of units of affordable housing here, so it's not like it's going to throw us over the threshold.
and that's what I'm saying, with Parson Street going in, it just seems to offset it nicely, in my opinion.
While I agree with that, I still feel that everyone was under the understanding that this would be affordable housing for the last however many years, since 2006, I think it was.
2004.
2004. So for the last 11 years, everyone's been expecting affordable housing there. It's not like there isn't that expectation already.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not against releasing if all the ducks are in a row. I'm not against releasing the affordable restriction. I would just want to make sure that we're really clear. We should check with what type of process needs to happen with the CPA, because we don't want to get into hot water with appropriating CPA funds and then not using that site, so we just need to. I think that's the piece of this that for me is
those funds have to be returned.
Right, but I don't know
how they get returned.
But I also don't know if there's a process for that. If there's some sort of if there's some or if we release it and then it doesn't sell right away, like what kind of liability do we have? Are we gonna? So I think those are a couple of questions that we should probably ask. Is what the CPA portion of this whole thing, because I'm there is a lot of affordable housing going in over there, so this one parcel isn't going to make or break it, and if we can get it back on the tax rolls, that's great, and not have it be a blight to the neighborhood, great. We just need to make sure. I think that's the piece for me, at least. So maybe we can ask who's our representative? Is it Dan Hagen? Is he our CPA?
He is on the CPA committee.
So we should just kind of check in with him and see what he knows.
Sure.
And then we can go from there. There's no rush on this one, is there?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's a 2022 timeline if you're looking at something.
We got plenty of time. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Anything else?
No. It's,
Is there something in the meantime that we should do as a city to get some funds appropriated to at least clean the front yard? There's a gas tank in the front yard from a vehicle.
Really?
There's a gas tank.
Maybe we can ask Karen to see if
there's-
some of the highway guys can just drive by and see if there's some stuff that they could throw in the back of the pickup truck.
Yeah,
And bring-
and there's grass that's up to here, old grass, because the new grass hasn't come in yet.
Mhm.
It's really a mess, and I think we should at least clean it up. I don't think it would cost probably more than about $300 to get.
Well, just to give you a heads up on the state of our financial, I was talking to Jessica last night. In order for her to keep her staff, she does not have any more legal advertising funds to advertise for public hearings. So she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do because I have no funds to advertise public hearings. And she has $60 for the entire year for office supplies. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Things are pretty tight right now. So maybe we can get part of the neighborhood the East Hampton cleanup. Maybe that's one of the things we should mention to the organizers is, hey, if you have a crew that can go over to
154 Everett Street. Yes, that would be appropriate.
Yeah, because I don't think that we're going to be it's like blood from a stone at this point, I think.
And I think the highway guys is a great idea.
Yeah, that's another.
For the refuse that's there, like the gas tank.
Yeah. So, yeah. Cool. All right. I think we have a plan, right?
yeah.
Okay, good.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.